inside or out. Extra service thing. You can some wires been outside. So all of our wires are new inside everything else. So the tower is new. Showing that it's working perfectly. Connection. No, it's so we have to remove the cleaners and
Look at this inquiry.
Hello.
Hi, Barry.
Hello, Rob.
Hi,
Hello,
Kevin.
Hey.
How
How
you
we
doing?
Okay. Can anybody see me? I can't tell.
We can see you.
Okay, good. I guess good.
Can you, JB?
Hi, JB.
He says, can you hear me?
Say something, JB, and I'll tell you.
Good afternoon, Rob. How are you?
We can hear you. I'm good, JB. It's good to see you all.
Hey, Rob.
Everybody sure is quiet.
Yep.
The agenda took over the bulk of my screen, so I can't get to the voting screen. How do I minimize that?
Hit escape.
There you go. Thank you.
I am logged in, but I do not see a voting screen anywhere. Doesn't that just pop up as needed?
It'll pop up in the PrimeGov agenda, not on the agenda that you see on your screen right now.
Okay. So,
It's 1:30. I got to read this intro here and then we'll get started.
okay.
Thanks for joining us for the Oklahoma City Traffic and Transportation Commission's video conference meeting on 19 April 2021. We have a few announcements to make regarding the virtual meeting. The conference is disconnected at any time during the meeting. The meeting will be stopped and reconvened once the audio connection is restored. If communications are unable to be restored within 30 minutes, items remaining for consideration will be continued to the Commission's next regular scheduled meeting on 17 May 2021 at 1:30 p.m. via teleconference. The agenda for today's meeting is located on okc.gov. Anyone wishing to speak about an agenda item, public hearing, or to speak under citizens to be heard, please call 405-297-2531 or email chastity.walsh@okc.gov. You'll be allowed 5 minutes to comment. I ask that all the participants, except for the commission members, keep their phones on mute until they are recognized to speak. Commissioners will be allowed to ask questions or comment at any time during the meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and then verify our quorum, and then we'll begin. So let me get to roll call. Commissioner Barnell.
Here.
Commissioner Littlefield.
Here.
Commissioner Russell. Do we have Commissioner Russell? Okay, we don't have him up. Commissioner Hale.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Schuline.
Here.
Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Miller is not available. Commissioner George
Here.
and Commissioner Cornett.
Here.
Okay, we have 7 out of 9, so we do have a quorum. We'll go ahead and get the meeting to order. First item after call to order is approval of the meeting minutes of the March 15, 2021 meeting. Do we have a motion concerning this item?
I can move approval. Kevin George.
Varnell seconds.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve from George and seconded by Varnell. Let's get it all, let that come up. There's George, there's Varnell. Okay, do we have any talk on this item? All right, so we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of March 15, 2021 by Commissioner George and seconded by Commissioner Varnell. Can we please have the voting screen?
So this is where you would press escape on your keyboard. Jill, will you open the vote back up? Not everybody had had a chance to vote. Okay, so if you're still just seeing the item at the top and then where it says moved by Mr. George and seconded by Mr. Varnell in the middle, that's your Zoom screen. So you need to press escape on your keyboard and you may have to click on your Chrome or whatever internet browser you're using on that icon on your start bar to bring up PrimeGov. And then you should have your buttons.
Not happening for me. I'm
Didn't
very-
come up for me. Am I the only one that's not getting it?
I'm not getting a voting screen. I'm sorry.
All right. Mr. Kula, are you using an Apple device or a Windows device?
Using Windows. I'm on a Chrome.
You're on Chrome? Okay. So currently on
I-
your screen, what do you see?
Well, I see that the motion has been moved and it's been seconded. It's showing passed right now, so it went past the voting time.
Well, that's just because she closed the vote too soon, but that shouldn't matter. You should still be able to see voting buttons. Jill, go ahead and call their votes verbally, and then we need to make sure everybody votes before you close it next time, so I can make sure they find their buttons.
Yes, ma'am. Kula
Yes.
and Mr. Littlefield.
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead and hit close vote now. Okay, there's the results.
And I
Okay.
see the results.
I'm thinking.
Okay.
So, Mr. Kula, did you see the results pop up?
Yes, I did. So I'm going between some things here. Okay. All right, then we go on now. Report on license and record service. Mr. Chai, do we have anybody here for that?
Okay, Sergeant Bales contacted us earlier today, and he is under the weather, so he is not going to be here to give you a report. He will be in attendance at the next meeting to be able to deliver a report. He did provide a little bit of additional information regarding vehicle for hire statistics related to COVID-19, but he'll be at the next month's meeting to be able to discuss those with you in detail.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll go on now to the consent docket. Is anybody on here wanted to speak about the consent docket? And I don't show anybody popping up for that. So staff, do we have any input on the consent docket?
No, this item is being presented for approval. The traffic signal at this intersection was installed as part of construction on the last phase of the John Kilpatrick Turnpike's western extension. It's already in existence. Since it requires commission ratification, we're presenting it as a consent item for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Can we have a motion concerning the consent docket, please?
Varnell moves. Oh, there's some. There we go.
All right, here we go. So we got Mr. Hale has moved to approve the consent docket, seconded by Commissioner George. Do we have any talk on the consent item? Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Hale to approve the consent docket and seconded by Commissioner George. You have the voting buttons, please.
Okay, so Mr. Kula, if you press escape on your keyboard now, do you see your voting buttons?
No.
You may need to click on Chrome at the bottom.
Live meeting up, and I see a motion to approve the Hale and the George. It says status waiting. No voting button came up. And then over on the Zoom one where you shared, I see the same kind of thing, but no voting button. So for some reason, it's not popping up for me today.
Okay, and what about you, Mr. Littlefield? Were you able to hit escape and find your Prime Gov screen?
No, ma'am.
Hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah, I'm not sure then what to do for that. Jill, you'll just need to call verbal votes for them and just mark it.
Yes, ma'am. And Mr. Kula
Please.
and Mr. Littlefield.
Yes.
There we go.
Oh, we have item is approved, all 7 in favor. I have to remember to say that. Okay, so we'll go on now to the next item. Item 5A. Douglas Hartwig, PE, Crafton Toll, to consider request to 1, establish 90-degree angle parking within a setback parking area on the north side of Northwest 56th Street from approximately 90 feet east to 130 feet east of the east curb line of North May Avenue. And 2, establish a reserved parking space for the physically disabled on the north side of Northwest 56th Street from approximately 90 feet east to 108 feet east of the east curb line of North May. Do we have anybody here to speak on this item?
Doug Hartwig is here.
Hi, sir.
Hello.
You can have your name, address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Okay, my name is Doug Hartwig. I'm at 2308 Colchester Drive, Edmond, Oklahoma. I'm not sure. I won't take my 5 minutes, I promise you.
Very good.
This particular site is a dentist office, Pinkston Dental. It is surrounded by apartments and other offices and building types, so there's no room for him to expand his parking. He does barely meets code now, but he would like to expand parking, and all he can figure out is he can get 1 additional one on his site, and he would like to add these 3 that are on Northwest 59th Street.
All right, very good. Thank you, sir. Do we have anybody else wanting to speak on item 5A? Okay, staff, can we have your input, please?
All right, well, you've got our comments before you. This is a rather unusual application because it's parking that is on the perimeter of a portion of a cul-de-sac. When we were researching into this matter, finding information or other examples of something similar to this in the U.S. it's rare. So this is kind of an unusual one for your consideration. Action on this particular case will be at the discretion of the commission. As proposed, the 90-degree angle parking on the north side of Northwest 56th Street appears to meet or exceed our proposed angle parking standards with respect to the minimum perpendicular parking stall depths. We're not anticipating that the introduction of the angle parking area at this location is going to have a meaningful effect on traffic movement. The number of reserved spaces provided for the physically disabled, which in a small area like this is 1, that would appear to meet the ADA requirements. So at this point in time, the applicant hasn't requested any sort of restricted use for the parking spaces, whether it's time limited or otherwise. So if recommended for approval, a motion needs to include the applicant dedicating public right-of-way or roadway easement sufficient to fully cover the proposed setback parking spaces and sidewalks, and then the applicant bearing the responsibility for the preparation of the construction documents. And if you've got any questions on this matter, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Do we have a motion concerning this item? And could you make it verbal to start with so we make sure we get the,
I move for approval.
I'm sorry, say that again, Mr. Littlefield,
I move for approval.
which includes staff comments?
Yes. Which includes the dedication of public right-of-way easement with the additional language and bearing the responsibility of the preparation of public improvements, construction, and the balance of the language.
Okay, and I show a second by Commissioner Barnell. Do we have any talk on this item?
Nope.
I'm sorry, it sounded like somebody might have been talking.
No, I think, no
Okay.
comment from me.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion to approve item 5A from Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Barnell, to include staff recommendations. Can we have the voting buttons, please? Kula votes yes.
Mr. Littlefield, yes.
Yes.
Okay, item 5A has passed with all 7 voting in favor of passing. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, now we'll go on to item 5B. Craigslinger. Consider request to change the speed limit on North Villa Avenue between Northwest Expressway and Northwest 63rd Street from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. We have a speaker for this one.
Yes, Craigslinger.
Hi, sir. If I can have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for consideration and the time. My name is Craigslinger. I live at 2424 Northwest 56th Street in Oklahoma City. And I'm requesting that Northville Avenue between 63rd Street and Northwest Expressway drop to 25 miles an hour. It's currently at 30. The street connects 2 major neighborhoods, Belle Isle West and Wildman's Belle Isle. It's bookended with a Belle Isle Middle School on the northern side, and the Belle Isle Library on the southern side. And it's a very active community, lots of runners and walkers and strollers and bicycles. But this particular stretch of street, North Villa, does not have any sidewalks. So it's quite dangerous for the community to get out there while people are traveling down the street. 30 miles an hour doesn't seem like it's that fast, but I don't have any scientific data to back it up, but just from the eyeball test, it looks like people travel pretty quickly down this stretch of road. And I think dropping it down to 25 might make it a little safer for the community and everybody that lives in the area. Thank you for your consideration.
All right, so thank you. Does anybody else wanted to speak on item 5B? Okay, staff, if you could provide input, please.
All right, you've got our comments before you. Up on your screen right now is the speed analysis that we had done in preparation for this particular case. You'll see the way that this road is currently posted at 30, that about 60% of drivers are currently traveling at or below the currently posted limit. In the range of the 25 miles an hour, of course, it's posted above that. You're getting about 25% thereabouts of drivers traveling at that. Our observed 85th percentile speeds running right around 34. We did go ahead and run a Bella-like methodology, sorry about that, to review the credible speed limit for this particular stretch of road. It showed that 31, based on built conditions, might be an appropriate limit. It seems to be what most people are driving. So at this point in time, action on this item will be at the discretion of the commission, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on the application.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5B?
For the purpose of initiating conversation, I vote for approval.
Okay, we have a motion
For approval.
for item 5B from Commissioner Littlefield.
I'll second.
We have a second by Commissioner Cornett. Okay, who would like to speak about this?
I'd like to make a couple of comments, if that's all right.
Yes, sir.
With the study that Stuart mentioned, Bella, like, it seems like that no matter what we posted at, people are going to drive the way they feel the road ought to be, the speed limit they feel like it should be. From the data that was presented, it seems like that a lot of people feel like that limit ought to be 35 and not 30. Even though we were to change the speed limit to 25, it looks like that there's a good percentage of people that are going to continue to drive irregardless of what is posted. So I'm not sure that posting at 25 is going to achieve what you're trying to achieve, and that is to get people to slow down. Because we've got people on that stretch of road right now that are willing to exceed what's posted.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody else wanted to speak? Mr. Littlefield, you got your hand up?
Yes, I've got a couple of questions and a couple of comments. First of all, is this sorry, don't know where that came from. Was this a subject or a conversation or anything that had to do with the support of the two neighborhoods in general, the general memberships, or are you applying for this as a sole citizen?
Great question.
I have the support of a couple of neighbors. I just did kind of an informal discussion with some of the people that live around me, a couple of parents with children, a couple of people that don't have kids, and they were in agreement and signed a letter. So I'm not sure if you need more or how many signatures, but I do have a few signatures on file.
This is my purpose for asking that question is because this would be something that would impact two neighborhoods in a pretty great way. And I think that if the conversation were taken to those two neighborhood associations, maybe there could be more emphasis in the need to doing this. That the other two things that I want to ask about, and this might be a question for Lakeisha, and also a second question for Stuart. Is there any possibility that this road between 63rd and Northwest Expressway would ever be considered for bike lanes? Is my first question. And my second question is there anything in the plan to install sidewalks on this corridor? Would Stuart or Lakeisha know the answers to those?
I would like to respond to that. It looks like Stuart's speaking, but we can't hear, and I didn't want to speak over Stuart. So I want to give Stuart a chance first, and then I would like to respond to that.
Sure. Okay. Well, I was about to say on page 1 of the report, we've added a new subcategory under your traffic data. The third line now is the bike walk OKC designation, and Villa is marked as a Tier 3 facility, which is a share-o, basically a share the road type facility, and it carries that designation from Northwest Expressway up to Northwest 62nd Street, at which point it turns off. But yeah, it's just a share the road type facility. That's what's planned for it in Bike Walk OKC.
Do you know when that plan for that corridor might be implemented?
Really soon, Mr. Littlefield. The project is funded. It is a funded sales tax project, and it's also being coordinated with the Northwest BRT project. So it does have a timeline that it has to be constructed by 2023. I do know that Public Works I believe is in the process of getting the consultant under contract, but I'm not sure if that contract has been established and how far along they are in the design process. I would like to add to the comments, the Tier 3 facility is a shared lane facility, so it will not have designated bike lanes. However, because it is a shared lane facility, proposed to be a shared lane facility, a lower speed limit is preferred to assist to accommodate the shared lane facility, to accommodate cyclists to be able to safely traverse this particular section. I think that answers your question.
And aren't these types of areas, isn't it preferred that the maximum speed limit applied there be what, 30? Is it 30 miles an hour?
I believe our plan does call for 30, but 25 is
Even better.
is even better. I think 30, is a little, it's on the verge. 25 and 30 is on the verge. So 30 is in the plan, 25 is better.
Is there
for a cyclist?
Is there anything being considered about a sidewalk on this corridor?
That I don't know immediately. I don't know immediately, and I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to answer that. And that is something that I'll address later on in our presentation, that these are the types that I did see this on the agenda and was going to refer to this project as one of those types of projects that we would like to be proactive about and be able to comment on in advance and maybe communicate with Stuart and part of his his report. So that I'm not coming to the table like today, bringing this information. I'd have much better information for you. I'll address that later in my presentation.
Thank you, Lakeisha. My view is just given the fact that this is planned to be a sharo, I have no problem supporting lowering the speed limit on this corridor to 25 miles per hour, just based on that alone. So thank you, Lakeisha.
Rob, I agree with you. I think the built environment, unfortunately, doesn't support a slower speed, but one thing that we can do in the absence of built environment changes is to lower the speed limit, especially with sharos. Sharos aren't going to change the built environment either, unfortunately. And so we're really, I think dropping it to 25 is the right thing to do, especially with the school that's right there as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Anybody else wanted to speak on this item, 5B?
May I?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Lakeisha, could you describe to the commission how a sharo is signed or marked on the roadway or with signage along the roadway?
The sharo it's a chevron symbol with a bike symbol below it, and it is painted on the pavement. In the past, we have painted it kind of to the left, to the right of the travel lane. Going forward, our designs is to paint it in the center of the travel lane so that it's more visible. Our goal is to also have a green back behind it. And that's what our standards now call for. Is for it. In the past, you've seen it's just been the white pavement marking with the chevron and the bike. Going forward, we're trying to implement the backing of a green box with the chevron emblem in the middle of the green box. And but that's dependent upon location and funding, because the cost for the green paint does significantly increase the cost of the project. The signage would simply be bike route and share the road. I know in the past we've used share the road. I can't remember if we're going to continue using share the road, but we definitely will be signed a bike route. The spacing is typically, I think, about 250 feet. I think every 250 feet, you may see a chevron symbol.
So therefore, when we all consider the work that we've done in the traffic calming arena, the combination of the signage, the use of it as a sharo, the painting on the street, all of those three elements are very effective traffic calming measures. Thank you again.
I'm sorry, I was corrected. It will be a black backing, not a green backing on the sharo.
All right. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to speak on item 5B?
I have a quick question. You say you're going to paint it in the middle of the street?
Yes, the standards now call for it to be painted in the middle of the travel way and not to the right of the travel way. And that's for two reasons, two purposes. One, it's more visible for the drivers. And two, it has less maintenance impacts where kind of to the right, it was impacted by vehicular traffic. And now it's less impacted.
So are there north and south
Yes.
paintings? But they're both so they'll be up against each other in the middle of the road?
No. So in this case, it will have to be a center line painted. It should be a center line painted. If there's not a center line, they likely will be offset somewhat because it's based on I think a 250-foot spacing, and it's based on where it starts depending on the direction. So they likely will not be immediately adjacent to each other in each direction.
And so is the bicyclist expected to ride in the middle of the road then, and not against the curb?
The current law is that cyclists are permitted to ride within the roadway, and so they're not required to ride to the right of the road. They are permitted to ride within the roadway. I know that's typically by law they are permitted to ride within the roadway.
Right, at any speed they care to. Yeah.
Less than the posted speed limit.
Yeah, well, 25, that's a little hard on a bicycle, I guess, unless you're really moving.
Well, that brings up a good point. I thought the goal of a shared road or a bike on a road is that they're off 3 feet on the right side of the lane. And I remember that in the past. Maybe that's an old standard or something. But you want bikes to be from the curb to 3 feet out, and they have a right to be there. And then a car that's following has the ability to pass it when it's safe. So is that still one of the requirements, that they ride to the right more than to the center?
Well, just for clarification, the state law and the city ordinances require that if you're passing a person on a bicycle, you have to have a minimum separation between the person on the bicycle and the vehicle of 3 feet. That is a state law requirement, and it's been echoed in city codes.
Gotcha.
Okay, but there's nothing about riding a bike on the road per se, or is that maybe when it's a non-bike lane or share the road?
In the way that laws are also set up is in conditions like this, bike riders are encouraged to ride close to the right side of the road.
Right.
But there are locations that have been signed around the city where there's supplemental signs below the bike route signs that indicate that a cyclist may use a full lane for travel purposes.
Which
and
is
probably in a situation like this where a center line marking, like especially if it's for like a no passing zone, wouldn't necessarily fit this particular application, because if a cyclist was traveling in the middle of the lane, then someone in a motor vehicle would not be able to legally pass them, because they would be in a no passing zone.
Right, because then they'd have to cross the center line.
That's correct.
So let me just, and I know we're going to have a big briefing later, but just to clarify, going down a road, I'm on a bike, I'm going down a road. It is not a bike lane. It's not a bike share the road. It's not anything. Do I have the same rights as a bike rider as I would on a route share their lane? Is there a difference between the two?
My understanding, there is not a difference between the two, but it's dependent upon the road. So of course, like a highway or freeway, cyclists are not allowed to be riding on the road, but a minor arterial, a thoroughfare, I understand the law to read that they have the right to ride on the road. Now that's at their discretion and at their safety.
Well, of course. Yeah, but just my thought process is, I think when we started all the effort on the bike trails and bike roads and everything, it's we just wanted to identify where we would like to have bike traffic compared to where we really don't want bike traffic. And so we have the bike plan to help to identify where we would recommend bikes go. Is that
Correct.
true?
That is true. And I wasn't going to get into that level of detail in my presentation, but yes, that is, the plan identifies proposed locations for the bike network. And then we try to also identify levels of types of facilities that those roads could accommodate. So that's why Villa has been identified as a tier 3, which is the lowest tier of a type of facility. So we tried to identify the roads that we thought were appropriate through a bunch of analysis to make up the bike network. However, if it's not identified in the plan as part of the network, it does not negate that a cyclist can ride on that road facility. They have the right to ride on practically any road facility, as I stated earlier.
Okay, and so by moving the markings on the road, when you say center of the road, you mean center of the lane?
Correct. Yes, okay. I thought I said that. If I misspoke, I meant to say in the center of the travel lane, not the center of the road, in the center of the travel lane.
Right. So that way the car tires go on each side of it.
That is a benefit to locating it in the center, but the primary goal of centering it is really so that it's more visible to the driver, to indicate that that road has been designated as a shared bike facility.
Right, and when it was off to the side, it also gave the indicator that the bike had to be to the side. And by moving it to the center of the lane, now it also indicates the bike may be in the center of the lane.
I think that's an interpretation that people may have interpreted to be that way. That I believe that even though when the symbol was located to the side, it may have been interpreted that that's where the cyclist should be. However, by law, they were permitted to ride in the center of the travel lane, regardless of the location of the symbol.
Okay, no, that's good. Thanks a lot. And I think Mr. Hale had his hand up first. So Mr. Hale, if you could please.
My thoughts on this are just that I do not support reducing the speed limit just because of the layout of this road. It looks to be just a straight shot, and I'm just concerned that even if we do lower the speed limit, it's not going to affect the speed the way that the desired effect that we're looking for. If we do pass this today, I would ask Stuart to follow up with a 45 to 60-day follow-up to see the impact that reducing the speed limit signs has had on this street, see if it is achieving what we are voting on today. And I would also ask that the same type of follow-up occur after the streets are painted for the bicycle use, just to see the impact that really and I agree that once the painting occurs, it should have a traffic calming effect by narrowing or changing the outlay of the road. But I would also ask that we follow up, if we do approve, 45 to 60 days with follow-up study, and then once again after the road is painted. Thank you.
Okay, that's certainly something we can do.
Okay, very good. Anybody else wanted to speak before we move on?
Yeah.
Dave, I would love to speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've always on this commission liked it a lot more when a group came to us with a proposal, not a single applicant and a couple of neighbors around. That's my biggest concern about this, is we're not hearing from a lot of the people that live around there. And also somebody said something about the schools right there. Well, the school has a school zone that's already going to put it to 25 miles an hour when the school's there or the school's in session. So that should be irrelevant in this. We've talked a lot about calming measures, but that's not what Mr. Schenger is asking for. He's asking for a speed limit change. And all these bike things will happen whenever the bike comes in. So I'm with Barry Hill, where I just can't support this unless we have a lot more neighbors to come forward with a single applicant.
Thank you. And then now over to Mr. George.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking along the same lines, just that the neighborhood hasn't got their voice heard. You know, I'm sure there's some neighborhood associations that there's probably 1,000 homes that will be somewhat affected. And you know, the bike route does throw a hitch in the thing, I guess, but it seems like maybe that should be brought back by the traffic when the bike lane comes in, or when they're getting ready to paint it. I mean, if it's next week, that's something different, but if it's 6 months from now or whatever, and then that would give the applicants time to meet with the homeowners associations and such, and make sure that they do have a good amount of people that would like it changed. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Littlefield, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. I'm really appreciating this dialogue. One of the first question that I asked the applicant was whether or not this decision came from the 2 organized neighborhood associations, and
right,
to go further, if it was an item on an agenda they may have had where they had a vote and the majority voted to reduce the speed limit. What's interesting to me and what I'm hearing in this dialogue is we're all aware now that there's a Shero planned and coming there, and that Shero isn't a decision that those neighborhood associations would be making. It's something that a Bike Walk OKC is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just finding this practically, I'm giddy over it. It's a classic example of what we're trying to accomplish with traffic calming. And initially when this first came to my attention, I was like, heck no, there's no reason to reduce this speed limit. It's people are going to drive what they see. People are going to continue to drive the speed limit that we're seeing in the traffic studies. But given that there's a Shero coming and there's going to be signage, vertical signage along the roadway and signage painted on the street, I think this is just a great opportunity to see if this combination of traffic calming measures does something. It's I believe that this is an opportunity for us instead of a challenge. And as I'm going to say it one more time, if it weren't for the Shero, I would disapprove. And I just encourage y'all to think about that.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Dunbar? Ms. Dunbar?
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you. I did receive confirmation that we do have planned sidewalks. They are currently not funded, but Bike Walk does call for sidewalks along Villa Avenue, extending from Northwest Expressway up through to Northwest 63rd Street. So again, they're planned, but not funded at this time.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else wanted to speak on this item? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5B from Commissioner Littlefield and seconded by Commissioner Cornett. Can we have your votes, please? Kula votes no.
Mr. Littlefield,
I vote for approval.
thank you. Mr. Shoeline?
Mr. Shoeline, could you unmute?
Are you able to vote?
You need to unmute, Mr. Schuline. There you go.
Yeah, I voted aye on my
So, oh, it's
Zoom.
not showing up here. So yes.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the item has passed with a 4 in favor and 3 against. Very good. Okay, we now move on to item 5C. Sarah Hannah, Gardner Architects, to consider a request to establish a reserved parking space for the physically disabled in a setback parking area on the north side of Northeast 7th Street from approximately 368 feet west to approximately 396 feet west of the west curb line of North Oklahoma Avenue. Do we have someone here to speak on this item?
Yes, I'm here. My name's Sarah Hannah.
Hi, ma'am. If I could have your name, address, have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, so like I said, I'm Sarah Hannah. My address is 909 Northwest 12th Street. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I thought I'd just say that this new development that's going to be located here, it's taking an existing building and turning it into a multi-tenant development, including a brewery, restaurant, office spaces. And it's something that we're just really excited for, and we think it's going to be really great for the community. And I'm just here for any questions if you have them.
All right, ma'am, thank you very much. Is there anybody else wanting to speak on this item? Hey, staff, can we have your input, please?
All right, you've got our summary comments before you. Action on this item is going to be at the discretion of the commission. The applicant is proposing an inset parallel parking area, and you can see where the reserve space for the physically disabled is located. It would meet the number of spaces required for the block for ADA compliance purposes. At this time, the applicant's not requested any form of regulatory parking controls to control the use of this particular space. So if recommended for approval, a motion should include the condition that the applicant bear responsibility for the preparation of the construction improvement plans for it. And in this particular case, ordinarily, we would comment on the fact that additional right-of-way to cover the required sidewalk is necessary, but in this particular case, it's all being proposed within the limits of existing right-of-way. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on this application.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5C?
Mr. Chairman, I move the application be approved.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Schuline. Could you state the whole motion, please?
Yes, I move that the application be approved with the staff's recommendation that the applicant be responsible for the improvements.
Okay, we have a motion to approve with staff recommendations from Commissioner Schuline. And do we have a second? We have a second by Commissioner George. Okay, talk on this item. They just want to make sure nobody has anything to add. So we have a motion to approve item 5C from Commissioner Schuline to include staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner George. Can we have your votes, please? Kula votes yes.
Mr. Littlefield?
I vote yes.
Okay, I show the item has passed with all 7 in favor. Okay, we'll go on now to the next item. The item is 5D. Lori and Gardner to consider a request for the addition of stop control on North Harvey Avenue at Northwest 14th Street to establish all-way stop control. Do we have someone to speak on this item?
Yes, sir. I'm
Hi there. Can I have your name and your address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, sir. My name is Lauren Gardner. My address is 2636 Northwest 58th Street. My children attend the daycare at St. Luke's, which has a loading zone on Harvey that takes up about the whole space from 14th to 15th on the east side of the road. I put in this request for a four-way stop sign with the input of many parents that I've spoken to, neighbors, some of which are on this call, and I think have also signed up to speak, and church leadership. Regularly, when we are in this loading zone, you can see it in the top picture on the right side of the road, cars come driving through at much faster than 25, coming southbound and northbound. There's a stop sign on 15th Street that I think helps some, but as recent as Friday, I was picking up my children and a car came so fast, I couldn't make out a single digit on their license plate. This is a daycare. This is really young children and there's a lot of traffic. And I certainly appreciate the traffic study that says the highest speed was 31. I don't know what time they did that study. I'm sure they can tell us, but I'll tell you my experience at peak pickup and drop off hours. So 6 to 8:30, and then about 4 until the center closes at 6. This is a regular problem where I'm trying to load my small children for the 200 plus other children. And we just want to be safe, and we want increased barriers to speeding and a reduced likelihood that one of our children or us or a teacher or somebody who's visiting the church would be seriously harmed by the chronic reckless drivers. So I appreciate you all considering this item and allowing me the opportunity to speak, and I'm here for any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. I'm sorry, but I can't see on my screen the pop-up of who's signed up to speak. So if somebody else would like to speak, let me hear you.
Good afternoon.
Okay, Mr. Greenwald, we'll need your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Phil Greenwald, and I serve as the executive pastor and chief financial officer for St. Luke's United Methodist Church, located at 222 Northwest 15th Street in Oklahoma City. I'm also the corporate representative for the St. Luke's Children's Centers. We greatly appreciate the grassroots efforts of Ms. Gardner and others to propose a four-way stop at Harvey and 14th Street. St. Luke's supports the proposal and appreciates your consideration today. We recognize the traffic statistics may not support this request. However, those do not always convey the human story that you've heard Ms. Gardner share behind the request. We're blessed to have more than 220 children under the age of 5 who enter and exit their parents' cars at this location twice a day between 14th and 15th Street. We take very seriously their safety. We are not asking for flashing lights or a crosswalk, but simply stop signs as a way to encourage our friends and neighbors to slow down and to take notice of all the young lives at this location. We're grateful for your time and effort to review our request.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Do we have somebody else that wishes to speak on this item?
My name is Sarah Sweet. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I see you, and you
Yes,
have
my name is Sarah Sweet. I live at 300 Northwest 15th Street, which is, so my home is on the southwest corner of Northwest 15th and Harvey. So I'm just one block north of the proposed four-way stop. And I'm really here to just testify as to what I've seen over 10 years of living here on a weekly, if not daily basis of traffic going through at very high rates of speed. Frequently, our stop sign at Northwest 15th and Harvey is run. People looking at their cell phone or distracted driving or just speeding to reach the stoplight at 13th and Harvey. Every day during the weekday, I see toddlers and little ones coming out with their parents. And so I have been concerned about their safety before Lauren contacted me. I also wanted to mention that there is a man who's blind in our neighborhood who walks frequently. I admire him so much, and I also worry about him with the rate of speed that I see some people drive through our neighborhood. There's tons of traffic. Lots of our neighbors are very active in walking, running, walking dogs, and this is all ages, from little ones to elderly people. In addition, and Mr. Greenwald mentioned this, but there is no blinking light to indicate that there is a school present. So I desperately wish there were one. I know that's not what today is about, but there's no visual sort of warning to oncoming traffic that there's a school there. So I am strongly in favor of additional safety measures by adding a four-way stop at Northwest 14th and Harvey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your comments. Do we have anybody else that wishes to speak?
Yes, my name is Alexandra LeMay.
Hi, ma'am. Let me have your address and you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My address is 2521 Northwest 60th Street in Oklahoma City. I send my 2 children to St. Luke's on 14th and Harvey, and I work downtown at Ernst & Young. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know that we've already had a few people speak, but I did want to show the amount of support that we have from parents and members of the community. At around 9 a.m. on last Friday, we did create an online petition just so that way we could show how many people are in support of this. We sent it to mainly parents and people in the neighborhood. And before the end of the day, so just within about 5 hours, we had over 140 people who supported this petition for an always stop. We're at over 150 right now. Again, as the parent of 2 young children that attend St. Luke's, safety during pickup and drop off is supremely important to me, as it is no doubt to all the parents and caregivers of the over, I think, 220 children that attend the downtown campus. And there are obvious times of the day when the street is more congested than others during drop off and pickup, which also then coincides when people are probably in a rush to get to work, right? Coming to and from downtown. And the parking area for the St. Luke's daycare is on the west side of Harvey. So this leads to parents walking across Harvey, typically carrying at least one, and like me, 2 kids and all of their belongings. And I just have seen countless times when motorists are not obeying the speed limit and racing down Harvey, not paying attention to doors that are open while they're unloading or unloading their children, or paying attention to the parents that are just trying to corral their kids in and out of the building. So I hope that you all consider the addition of the always stop and see the support that we have gathered from the other parents, as I think a stop sign will make that section of Harvey safer for everybody, including the drivers headed northbound on Harvey and the parents who are in and out frequently using the loading zone. I think it would just force everybody to take a second to stop and take in their surroundings. And we were originally going to, ask a lot of parents to speak, but because of how many people seem to support it, we decided that maybe a petition would be a better use of your time. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. Anybody else wanted to speak on this item? Okay, we'll move on over to staff input. Staff, please.
All right. Well, you've got our comments before you. One item that did come up that was addressed or mentioned was use of like warning flashers or something like that. The way that the city's codes are structured, streets that are posted 25 miles an hour are not eligible for warning signals of that type. But with respect to the city and the MUTCD criteria regarding the use of always stop control, this particular intersection does not have a traffic volume that would meet that. There's not a collision history or experience at the location that would suggest that the use of always stop is required. So action on this item will be at the discretion of the commission.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Can I have a motion concerning item 5D, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move the application be approved.
We have a motion to approve item 5D from Commissioner Schuline, and we're going to need a second here. Second from Commissioner Varnell. Do we have any talk on this item?
Shay does. Thank
Okay.
you. This is what a proposal should look like. The community, people that it affects the most coming together and presenting. So thank you for all the parents' work and the people that live around this area coming together and getting a good proposal to us, and for all the information. Thank you.
Let's go to Ms. Cornett.
Thanks. So I just kind of wanted to get some history because I'm new to the commission. I'm coming up on a year, but a few years ago, I know that there was a master plan that was put into place for stop signs throughout the entirety of Heritage Hills and Mesta Park. And that was like a consultant that came up with all of that. And I guess I was just wondering and getting some historical context as to maybe why this intersection didn't make the mark then. And you all may not know, but just kind of getting some information about that, because I am 100% like approving this, especially because of the daycare, and I've been down that street, it's right down the street from my house. Like, yes, I totally agree with the problem, but what I don't want is somebody to use this as leverage for another four-way stop elsewhere in that neighborhood, and then every single intersection becomes a four-way stop as a means of traffic calming moving forward, because that was already abused, in my opinion, at that time, whenever the master plan was passed. So I guess if anybody wants to speak to that or was on the commission at that time.
I can give you a little bit of background on that. Every location that the Heritage Hills, Mesta Park, Heritage Hills East Neighborhood Association asked to be converted to from a two-way stop to an all-way, and changed from yield control to two-way stop was approved. So as far as the internal traffic controls, everything that was requested in the past has already been approved, which gives you the stop configurations that you see now on all the streets.
So this just wasn't proposed, like this intersection wasn't initially proposed by the neighborhood. Okay.
Right, this intersection was not addressed.
Okay, we'll go on over to Mr. Hale.
Just a couple of things. First off, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to come and carry out their views on this intersection. A couple of things I would note: the lady that spoke and indicated that they run the stop sign at 15. I think pretty well indicates what's going to happen at this intersection also. While we would like to think that it was extremely effective, if they're not going to drive the speed limit and they're running other stop signs, my concern for the kids is that I don't want a parent or a child expecting someone to stop because there is a stop sign and they don't. It was mentioned about running the stop sign at 15th. It was also addressed about distracted driving, whether it be texting, on the phone, or whatever. The stop sign's not going to change that. There may be some other alternatives, but the Heritage Hills Mesta Park initiative to put up four-way stops throughout the neighborhood was to calm traffic. And from what these folks are saying today, it hasn't been effective. It sounds like that they're still having problems with distracted drivers, speeding drivers, and people running stop signs. So I don't support this just for those reasons. Thank you.
We'll go over to Mr. Littlefield.
I can't see the photographs, and I didn't look at them closely enough that are in the staff report, but is there any opportunity for a crosswalk at this intersection in addition to these stop signs? I can't tell if there are existing sidewalks or ADA approaches or if they could be considered in the future. It seems to me that if it were a four-way stop with a designated crosswalk, it would be a really good thing.
Rob, can I speak to that just really quickly?
Yes, ma'am.
So I think the issue isn't people crossing the street. The loading zone is close to the school. Like, it's on the same side as the daycare is. And cars line up right there. And that in and of itself, I feel, is a better traffic calming measure than stop signs just throughout the whole neighborhood. But it, like, people, as they are opening their doors on the driver's side, those cars are driving quickly through there. So at least giving the majority of people, I don't want to say like people run stop signs. Yes, they do. But 99.9% of people don't. And so I don't want to make an exception for the people who are going to run them. So when people are coming through that corridor, it's when your children you're trying to load your kid in the back seat and cars are zooming past you. So it's not necessarily a crosswalk issue or something that we're trying to get somebody to a mid-block cross or anything like that. It really is just reserved to that east side of the street.
I see. Thank you.
Hey, Ms. Gardner.
Thank you. I wanted to let the commission know we did initially put in a request for a mid-block crossing about 163 feet north of the middle of the intersection of North Harvey and 14th. However, we would have had to have removed our very precious loading zone in order to accommodate that. And the church was prepared to front any costs that the city doesn't in order to do that. But our loading zone is very precious to us because it does help keep us safe in the midst of all of the other speeding.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Hale.
Mr. Chai, don't we have some streets within Oklahoma City that are posted do not enter between the hours of, and then they have set hours for loading and unloading of children around school areas? Aren't those currently in place?
We do have a number of locations around, and they're primarily set up to basically discourage the ingress during certain times in order to basically facilitate an orderly movement as far as parent pickup goes. But around like a facility that's not like a K through 12 situation, I don't think we have. There's nothing that I know of as far as any facilities like this that have got like do not enter type restrictions that are tied to this. Because a lot of these, some facilities are open year round, but most school facilities are just open, the standard August through May time periods. But I'm not aware of anything that you're talking about that's specific to basically a before and after or a daycare type facility.
Okay, so it's just mainly for Oklahoma City public schools.
Well, and other school districts, yes.
Okay. Would that type of signage be appropriate for this section of street between 14th and 15th?
Without having gone and monitored what's going on as far as traffic circulation goes at this particular location, I couldn't really say at this point in time. We would literally have to go out there and observe the morning drop off and the afternoon pickups. And I'm not sure because like for most school type facilities, they've got set arrival times and they got set dismissal times, but a daycare facility might offer pickup times that go way beyond what's ordinary for, what you would consider to be a school. So it'd be hard to pick the times for that.
Okay, and forgive me, but I was just under the impression it sounded like that there were certain times to where there were a lot of cars lined up, that this wasn't just all day long, but at certain times where children were dropped off and picked up. Is that correct or incorrect?
I think that's probably a question that a representative from St. Luke's may be able to answer for you.
If I could just speak for a second about that.
Yes.
The drop off is, you can take your kids as early as, 6:30 in the morning. And then pickup is all the way until 6 p.m. So there's no set time. It's really just, a lot of it's dependent on, do you have other kids to take to school? Are you taking them on the way to work? So there's a wide range of drop off and pickup.
And also, I would think so let me just make sure, the drop-off traffic and the pickup traffic, it's all on the same side of the street mainly. You don't really cross the street.
So it just depends, I think, on if the loading zone is full, then a lot of parents will then park in that west side parking lot and then cross Harvey to enter the school. But like me, for example, I would rather use the loading zone because I don't have to encounter as much traffic. Part that worries me is that I'm afraid that someone's going to like hit me and take my door with them when I'm using that loading zone. So I will actually just circle the building until there's a spot open because I feel like that's safer for my kids. But it's not great because when you have that door open, you lose a lot of that visibility too. And so it makes it very difficult.
So traffic on the other side of the street going in the opposite way is not of a concern, because I think that's what Mr. Hale is talking about, is if we stopped traffic going the other way across the street, it would maybe help and give more room for the cars going as the drop off in the pickup on the loading zone side. Is that what you were talking about, Mr. Hale?
That's correct. It's just, I'm just not sure that this is what he posted 25, correct? Mm-hmm. And we've already got stop signs on 15 and a stoplight on 13. And yet this is a problem, and that I'm not sure that a four-way stop is going to solve. But if we were to change the flow of traffic, maybe that would help alleviate some of the concerns that the parents have about the loading zone. That's where I was going with that.
Thank you. Ms. Gardner, you have your hand up?
Yes, sir. To answer a couple of the questions, there are peak, more common pickup and drop off times. It is a wide range. It can be 6:30 to 9 o'clock, and then anytime 3:30 on to 6. So that is a wide range. Many people do utilize the loading zone. I think it seems that lots of people do. It is not uncommon for people to park on that west side, also, in which they do have to cross Harvey. And they do encounter traffic, and that's four-way stop, of course, would help for people who even plan to roll the stop sign. To roll it, you have to hit your brakes, and that would cause them to become aware. Although I am not sure that a sign wouldn't, in addition to the stop sign, could also be helpful.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wanted to speak on this item?
This is Sarah Sweet again. I'm the person who lives in the neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I was here before the traffic study was done. And then, I mean, obviously I'm still here now. And we did add some stop signs. I think the map makes it look like we have, it's intense down here with the stop sign. That's really not the case. And I definitely respect the committee who reviewed this and didn't issue an opinion. And someone said something about there hadn't been an accident. I just think this is a very easy way to add 2 stop signs to possibly prevent any sort of tragedy. I mean, I see this every day. It's something I've been concerned about, and I'm not even a parent of any of those children. So to me, adding 2 stop signs is a very simple way to help provide some safety for several hundred children.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anybody else for item 5D wanted to speak?
I will only add one more item.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to emphasize, as we discussed briefly, schools and their school zones, that older school children have had more opportunity to be educated about safe road practices, unlike small children. My children are 3 and 1. And we get a lot of opportunity to talk about, we have to stop and look both ways before we get into our car because it's so dangerous there. But I just wanted to emphasize that this is especially important because it's a daycare, and that we have young children who have not had the opportunity or ability to learn more about street safety. And also because we're not a school. And so we are not eligible for things like a school zone or other elements that would make us safer.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anybody else for item 5D? Mr. George, is that you trying to talk?
No, I'm ready to vote.
Oh, yeah. All right, gotcha. All right. One last call here for 5D. All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Varnell to approve item 5D. Can I have your votes, please? Kula votes yes.
Littlefield votes yes.
Okay, the item has passed. It's a 6-1 in favor and approved item 5D. Okay. We'll go on now to the next item, 5E. And it's Michael Hoffner, PE, PTOE, Principal, Traffic Engineering Consultants, Inc., to consider request to one, establish 2-hour time-limited parking on the west side of North Walnut Avenue from approximately 42 feet south to 225 feet south of the south curb line of Northeast 4th Street, and 2, establish a reserved parking space for the physically disabled on the west side of North Walnut Avenue from approximately 42 feet south to 65 feet south of the south curb line of Northeast 4th Street. And I'm sorry, I can't see again. Do we have someone to speak on this item?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, great.
I do hear you. Let me have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Okay, I appreciate it. Michael Hoffner, and my address is 6000 South Western Avenue here in Oklahoma City. I want to thank you for taking the time to hear this application. It was written on behalf of Rudy Corey, who is the owner and operator of La Baguette, Black Walnut, and the Gray Sweater there along that corner there. The impetus for this is twofold. One, to provide convenient parking for those businesses along that section of roadway. And also the additional parking would provide a barrier and some, as has been discussed in today's meeting a couple times, but type of traffic calming, at least on that side of Walnut Avenue for the pedestrians' safety and comfort along that sidewalk there. We're proposing to add 9 parking stalls with a 2-hour limit, with one of those stalls being ADA compliant parking stall. At this point, we're just looking at the segment between 2nd and 3rd Street along Walnut Avenue. And we would leave a right turn lane there, southbound right turn at 3rd Street. And the additional through lane up at 2nd Street would basically become an exclusive right turn lane. I think that's all that I wanted to hit on immediately. We do have support along that block from several of the property owners as included in the application. Other than that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you very much. Does anybody else want to speak on item 5E? All right, staff, can we have your input, please?
All right, you've got our comments before you. Basically, what the application seeks to do is to take one of the southbound lanes on North Walnut Avenue and convert it for structured on-street parking. On page 3 of the report, we note the fact that based on the number of structured parking spaces on the circular block that's bounded by Walnut and Oklahoma and Northeast 3rd and Northeast 4th, there would actually need to be 2 reserved parking spaces on this block. Currently, there's just the one that's being proposed here, and which is why we note that for the the Commission's May 17th meeting, we'll be bringing forth another application to try to make up that other required ADA parking space. Action on this item is going to be at the discretion of the Commission, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have relative to the application.
All right, thank you, sir. Do we have a motion concerning item 5E?
I move approval of the application. Kevin, George.
And I'll second.
And the second was from Commissioner Schuline. So we had a motion to approve from Commissioner George, and it was seconded by Commissioner Schuline. There it is. Do we have anybody who wants to talk on this item? Stuart, I just have a question about losing a lane of traffic going from 2 lanes to 1. Is that okay? Is that something to be concerned about?
I'm going to defer that to Michael Hoffner because he had done, his firm was retained to do a study, basically a road diet type study. And that's illustrated as an attachment just for further information at the end of the report. And they had done an analysis where they had looked at taking Walnut Avenue from a 4-lane road basically down to a 2-lane road, but providing for turn lanes at the major intersections. So if Michael's still on the call, I'd let him talk about the study that he had prepared.
Absolutely.
Michael?
Yes.
All right. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Stuart. Yes, he is correct. We were retained back in a couple of years ago to do a traffic study along this segment of Walnut Avenue, and that traffic study spanned from 5th Street down to 2nd Street. And we wanted to look at what the traffic volumes were along there, given different lane configurations at the intersections, as well as along the block segments, and you know, what a road diet, as Stuart mentioned, would do to operations. And through that traffic study, we ran some models of each of the intersections. And again, we looked at the segment volumes as well. And at a 3-lane configuration, which is a little bit deceptive because 3-lane, at least in our context here, doesn't necessarily mean 3 lanes in mid-block, but 3 lanes at the intersection. So for instance, you would have a through lane, a left turn lane, and then an opposing through lane. So that would be the 3-lane configuration. So you'd have some turn lanes at the intersections. The operations were shown to be level service B or A during all periods of the day. The only concern was up at 5th Street, but at this point, we're not looking at minimizing lanes at 5th Street just because of the intense traffic up there. Another item of note is that Walnut Street over the bridge essentially is a 2-lane road south of this segment as well. So most of the traffic that we were seeing, for instance, in the AM peak hour inbound or southbound, we're accessing 4th, 3rd, or 2nd Street. So with being able to provide some turn lanes to those streets, which we are with this particular application, we're looking at pretty decent operations, you know, not too much of a drop off from what they are today.
All right, thank you. Yeah, that was my only concern, was losing the capability.
Right, and it is a valid concern, but in this instance, given the land uses of the area and wanting to promote walkability, the give and take, in our opinion, is worth it. And like I said, the operations aren't expected to decline from what they are today too significantly during those peak hours. So.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Littlefield, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I'm curious. The next phase of these parking spaces, where is the physically disabled space being proposed? In that, where would that be located?
Is that okay, I'm sorry, go ahead, Stuart.
Okay, I was about to say, originally there was a proposal to put it on the north side of Northeast 3rd Street, immediately to the west of Walnut. Can you see? You can see the that study that that illustration that TEC prepared. Is that on your screens?
Yes.
Okay, it would be. Well, you see the label. It says Northeast 3rd Street. It would be just above and to the right of the abbreviation for street. We'll probably look at seeing if a space could be worked into some of the existing striped spaces that exist around the block. The issue that we may run into is it may cause juggling around. A reserved space for the disabled is not just a traditional width. It also has an accessible aisle that has to be accommodated with it. So at this point in time, that's why we're looking at studying the area and seeing if there's a location someplace on that block between Walnut, Oklahoma, and between 3rd and 4th Street, where an ADA space could be added.
My question is a curiosity, because it seems like physically disabled spaces usually always wind up at the end of a row, one end of the row or the other. whether it be parallel parking or angled parking. And I've always been curious if that's just if there's any real reason for that. It just seems to me that if we're servicing the physically disabled, it would make more sense to put these spaces more in the center core of where the activity is, where they may be going. I'm just
Well,
sure.
the advantage to placing something like that towards a corner is if there's a crosswalk, and whether or not it's a signalized crosswalk or not, it provides somebody, if they need to get across the street, it gives them the ability to do it. Whereas if it was like in a mid-block location, they would just be they'd just be crossing basically at their own risk.
That makes
so by
sense.
Structuring them closer to a corner, it usually provides them better access to wheelchair ramps, because there's a lot of times there are also not wheelchair ramps located in mid-block locations either.
Thank you for that. The final question that I have is why the 2-hour limit in this location, and would the 2-hour limit apply to the physically disabled space?
Okay, the 2-hour limit is consistent with the controls that are already in existence on the perimeter of these blocks. So basically it's for consistency. And as far as the reserved space for the disabled, it's subject to the same time limitations, because the 2 hour is there to encourage basically turnover, as opposed to spaces being provided that could be used for free all-day parking.
Just seems to me that turnover takes a considerable bit more time for some disabled people than it does for people that aren't disabled. Thank you, Stuart.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wanting to speak on item 5E? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5E from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can we have your votes, please? Kula is a yes.
Littlefield is a yes.
I no longer have the voting buttons, but I'm a yes.
Okay, Merrick, what did you want to vote?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is it too late to ask a question?
No, it's not too late. In fact, let me, do you think it's going to affect the vote, or is this just a comment?
It possibly may.
Well. All right, there goes the vote.
We're all learning here.
Yeah, seeing as I didn't call it, then we're going to cancel the vote. So go ahead with your comments, Mr. Littlefield.
Lakeisha, is there anything that you would have to offer about whether or not there could be a proposed bike lane through this corridor?
Yes, I do. I'm smiling because we did have plans. I've been communicating here on the background that we do have plans for a bike facility on Walnut. And we did submit, and I thought we coordinated with Public Works on a project for a bike facility for this segment. It's been some time. It was actually one of the first projects I started when I started working for planning almost over 3 years ago. And I don't know the status of that. So I was a little surprised by the proposal today, and this proposal does not support, I believe it does not support what we originally had planned. I don't have enough information to bring forward at this time to help with the decision-making process, and my apologies.
So ma'am, let me get a actual clarification. A bike facility, if that's the term I heard, is a bike lane?
And that's why I said I don't have enough information at this time. It's been some time since we worked on this project. And Jeff, if you wouldn't mind helping me with this one, I believe we were proposing bike lanes We did have some challenges similar to what was discussed with the parking design, where the lane does drop, particularly in the southbound direction as you approach, I believe, 5th Street, and the accommodations for making a right turn. We, at the time, we did have staff internally where we had done some concepts to try to accommodate the bike. I believe it was a bike lane. I think there was a I'll stop there and see if Jeffrey can help remind me of what we were proposing to do there.
Yeah, Lakeisha, that's correct. There were discussions, and it was quite some time ago, and there were designs for bike lanes. As it says in the staff report here, it's a tier 2 facility is what Bike Walk OKC calls for. It's probably been a year and a half, 2 years since we were last involved with that. So I know that the applicant has been working on it for some time, and but yeah, that was my recollection. That was going to be bike lanes north and south, and parallel parking, at least on the east side, possibly both. I don't recall that detail.
Is this something we need to allow some time to look into?
I would desire that, yes.
All right, so when you say tier 2, and again, we haven't had our briefing yet that we're going to have later. Tier 2 is bike lane?
Yeah, sorry for the jargon. Yeah, it's the bike lane. So Lakeisha will present in a little bit. The tier 1 is a protected bike lane. Tier 2 is just a standard bike lane like you see downtown. And then a tier 3 is the share the road with the sharrow in the center that Lakeisha talked about.
Okay, so when you say a tier 1 is a protected bike lane, that means it's off to the side all by itself, and it's got probably some little plastic things.
Yeah,
to say it's its own thing.
Walker Avenue, protected bike lane. It has, in some cases, very wide buffers, but it also has delineators that give high visibility.
Right, so that's tier 1. Tier 2 is just what we've used to have as bike lanes, with just a little white line that says bikes to the right.
That's right, and that was what was planned here in Bike Walk OKC. There are various reasons for why it would be a tier 2 over a tier 1, but one of those is just the amount of space involved. You need a little more space for a tier 1.
Right, and so when we do stuff like this and we change the whole road, then when it comes time for you to look at that area and finalize plans, you would then probably have to go to a tier 3.
It depends. And when we did the plan, we knew that when you get into the design phase, often you'll have to tweak things. And it depends on the right of way, the speeds, the number of driveways, the parking involved, and just all these variables. What Lakeisha and I we haven't been involved in this for a while, so we haven't, we're not sure kind of what led to the decision to have a tier 3 showing up on the plans that you guys saw today.
Tier 2.
It could be any one or a host of those variables. So yeah.
So no, this one is a tier 2, I believe you said, isn't it?
That's what the plan is, but I believe what's before you is just a tier 3. And when I say the plan, Bike Walk OKC says it should be a tier 2. But I think the plan that's before you today, the design that's before you today, is a tier 3, which is sharrows. Another variable is what it connects to the south and the north, and future funding and so forth.
Right. Okay, so let me just ask Stuart here. What did you put on the agenda item for the tier status? Was it a 2 or 3?
This is marked as a tier 2 facility, and this is taken straight from Bike Walk OKC.
Okay, so then
but currently it is marked. Yeah, go ahead.
So then we would know by you indicating it as tier 2, that means we'd have to make sure there was 3 feet on each side so they could have a actual dedicated lane, which is what is tier 2. And so by doing away with the lanes of traffic, putting in parking, we would then have to know that it's probably going to have to change to a tier 3.
Well, I can, based on what I've read in Bike Walk OKC, I can tell you that a lot of the assigned routes, there's a conditional note that's applied to all of them, because even the plan recognizes the fact that there may be situations where a planned facility may not be able to be made to work on any given roadway, which could allow it to be stepped down from, say, like a tier 1 protected facility to maybe just a traditional bike lane, or in some cases, maybe going from a traditional bike lane to a share-row. So the plan does have that flexibility built into it, and it's in recognition of, changing circumstances. So in this particular case, at this point in time, based on how Bike Walk OKC was developed, it's been marked as being a tier 2 facility. But,
Right.
until it's constructed, that's just its plan designation.
Right. So then we would, let's say that we approve this and it gets all done. A year from now, they go out there again to finalize some plan, and they see what was done and they go, well, okay, now it's going to be a tier 3, and then they just mark it as a tier 3.
I would say that's probably a very real possibility, and planning staff and public works would be working together to accommodate things like that. Because this application that you see before you is one that's brought from the private sector. So there's always new demands for changes on the city's roadway networks, and the city's plans have to be able to accommodate those the requested changes and be flexible.
Okay, so let's go to Mr. Littlefield. He had his hand up first.
Yeah, we're entering into a territory in the commission where there's a learning curve, and we're entering into an arena in the city of Oklahoma City where we're actually implementing bicycle and walking facilities that have to work together and have syntax with traffic. And we've only had a couple of items come before this commission that are impacted one way or the other by bike lanes. And I am actually one of the members of the review committee of OKC Bike Walk. I've attended, I believe, 2 or 3 meetings, and I can tell you that I'm as naive as the balance of the commission. I believe that this education that we're going to get shortly is going to be very helpful, but I think that we need to be very careful when we look at these applications, that we understand that the OKC bike walk plan and how the two can work together at the time an application is made, as opposed to going back and having to change things in the future. One of the things that the chairman was stating was if this were to go in and it's a tier 2, then the plan could change it to a tier 3. Well, actually, I think it could possibly work in reverse. So I'd like to see on this particular item a continuance where we can all get a little bit more understanding of how these two entities are going to work in these shared spaces. That's what I would prefer on this particular application.
Okay, and Ms. Cornett, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Rob, I feel pulls all of the thoughts that I have and says them before I can. So that's great. Thank you, Rob.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's great.
Sorry, ma'am, I think you froze up.
And transportation is in charge of car traffic. And we don't have a space where anybody's really fighting for bicyclists, and trying to make that a thing. I know that has to be moved through city council for a commission to be built. I don't know at what point it comes to a head. I think it probably should happen sooner rather than later. because they're with Bike Walk OKC, what I can see happening, exactly what happened today, is that a private entity says we want parking spots, and we didn't even, Rob pointed this out, like we didn't even take a second to look that would affect the long-term ramifications of the Bike Walk OKC plan. And so then all of a sudden we are doing away with bicycle infrastructure in honor of more car infrastructure. And it just, like, it goes against the whole reason that Bike Walk OKC exists. And so I don't know if there is a commission planned or something that we could work closely with to actually make this more equitable, so that we're not just planning car traffic, but that we can actually talk about how our streets should work and how we can move people around in a meaningful way, and it doesn't require you to be in a vehicle.
Okay, very good point. Ms. Rawson from the counselor's office, is this something that is in the Traffic and Transportation Commission area that we are chartered to worry about bikes and walkers and all that as part of traffic?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. Yes, in some aspects that is in the, when it's involving traffic, yes, that is within the Traffic Commission's wheelhouse, so to speak. Of course, the more specifics we would have to go into could depend on the division between Traffic Commission and actually City Council approval, for instance, regarding ordinances and other changes to the actual roadway or system. Thank you.
But in concept, traffic and transportation, in just those two basic words, does deal with people and bikes and pedicabs and horse carriages and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, in the applicable chapters that the Traffic Commission, or I should say, I'm speaking of the ordinances. So in the ordinances that the Traffic Commission is involved with, it is involved with the traffic, it is involved with motor vehicles for hire, carriages, etc. So yes, those are in those chapters as well.
Okay, so we just need to make sure staff, which they started, put in tier 1, 2, 3 of what the bike plan says, what it looks like. We just have to think about those things as they come about. Okay.
So I think, just to follow up on that, I had somebody submit a request to me for a bike lane and sent that to Stuart, and Stuart bounced back that that's not in our wheelhouse. And so I think I would like more clarification on where that line is, because if that is, it's only applicable to us if it involves car traffic, then that only takes us so far. If it does actually include bike traffic, then, and we should be considering the extension to adding bike lanes or changing facilities or whatever that means, then I think we need to know that that exists in the purview of this commission.
Right, and I think what has happened over the several years is we have provided a review of the bike plans, et cetera, and then they go to City Council, and City Council approves the plan. Just like with the roadways, just like with anything else, City Council is responsible for that, and we have provided input. When the first bike plans were done 8-10 years ago, we got a briefing and we said, yes, we like it, and we recommend you go ahead and go to City Council. Not that it was needed, they just wanted us to have input. And this seems to be the year-long versions of those things, getting it even better, putting walking in there, putting the bikes in there, and now throwing traffic and parking and all that matters. Just like when we did the new, geez, I can't even think what they're called, those new trams running around the city. You know, we had input on that just to make sure for parking and all that. So that's a good point. We need to be involved, I think, and And if somebody has a concern, a bike route, a walking route, whatever, then there's nothing wrong with us getting it to the right people and then passing it along. Okay. So
Okay,
does anybody else have
Chairman,
any? Yes, who's
I
talking?
just want to give you a little bit of background. It was in 2011 when the commission had last reviewed what was the city's comprehensive bicycle plan. At that time, it was just known as the Bicycle Transportation Plan, and the commission approved it. And one of the caveats of approval was that that approval would be applicable to all subsequent revisions of the bicycle plan. And in this manner, the plan did not have to come back before the commission for any alterations. So for that reason, the commission no longer sees changes to the bicycle transportation plan in its current format, which is Bike Walk OKC.
Okay. Mr. Littlefield.
I would think that even given that, Stuart, thank you for that. But even given that information, I think that it's important when applications come before the traffic commission and there's the possibility of any tier proposed a bike lane going through there, that it should have an opportunity to be shared and discussed.
Okay.
Right, and that's why new with the past, I think we started it last month, but we now include under our traffic data on page 1 of the reports, a reference to a roadways bike walk OKC designation. So it's just one more of those things that rolls around in the back of your mind when you're considering an application and its ramifications to, you know, how changes to a particular roadway have to accommodate, you know, the city's master plans for pedestrian and bicycle and other transportation facilities.
Okay, so Mr. Littlefield, do you still want to make a recommendation that we change the motion from Commissioner George and Schuline, or are you okay now?
No, I wish to proceed with the continuance. I don't feel myself is educated enough with this, and I don't think that the balance of my colleagues on the commission are as even aware as I am, which is very little. So I think it would be very wise and smart to give this a 30-day rest.
Okay, so we go to Commissioner George. Would you be considered to change your motion? You're on mute, sir. I'm sorry. Mr. George, let me unmute you. You need to unmute Mr. George.
Sorry. This has been on the drawing board for Bikes OKC for 3 years and untouched. Delaying this for 30 days to me doesn't seem worth much. This private sector has gone through, looks like, massive expense to do traffic studies, and for I guess a year or two has been working on this, coordinating in some form or fashion with Bike OKC, with planning department, I would assume. And so, if the commission wants to revote, I guess we can, but I mean, it's already been voted on and already been.
But it wasn't called. So I'm just asking, does your motion stand?
My motion stands.
Okay, and Mr. Schuline, does your second stand?
That's fine. I'll let it stand.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and go again here. Now that we've had some more talk, seeing as I did not call the vote, we'll go ahead and revote. We have a motion to approve the item from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Kula is a yes.
Littlefield has said no.
Did everyone get an opportunity to change or to make their vote?
Yes, I did.
Well, let's see how it pops up. Okay, so the item is approved. We have 5 in favor and 2 against. So item has passed. And that was a good talk about the bike walk, and I appreciate everybody's comments on that. And it's something we have. Okay, next item. 5F. Not popping up on the other one, so I'll read it on this one. 5F, Judy A. Nickel. Oh, took that off. Well, on the meeting viewer, it's not popping up. I can't read it right now. So Stuart, don't change yours. Let me read it off of yours. Here we go. 5F, to consider requests to establish 45-degree angle parking within a proposed setback parking area on the east side of South Broadway Avenue from approximately 34 feet south to 126 feet south of the south curb line of West Oklahoma City Boulevard. 2, put it back, please. I'm reading off the shared screen. Could you put it back, please? There we go. 2, a reserved parking space for the physically disabled on the east side of South Broadway Avenue from approximately 112 feet south to 126 feet south of the south curb line of West Oklahoma City Boulevard. 3, 15-minute time-limited parking on the east side of South Broadway Avenue from approximately 34 feet south to 62 feet south of the south curb line of West Oklahoma City Boulevard. 4, 2-hour time-limited parking on the east side of South Broadway Avenue from approximately 62 feet south to 126 feet south of the south curb line of West Oklahoma City Boulevard. And 5, a time passenger loading zone on the south side of West Oklahoma City Boulevard from approximately 129 feet east to 244 feet east of the east curb line of South Broadway Avenue. Do we have anybody here to speak on this item?
Yes, you do. I'm Judy Nicholson.
Hi there. Hi, if I could have your address and you'll have 5 minutes.
Yes, Judy Nicholson with FSB. Address is 5801 Broadway Extension, Suite 500. Our developer is working with Okura on a mixed-use development with apartment units and retail that is down in the DBD district across West Oklahoma City Boulevard from Chesapeake Arena and immediately adjacent to the parking structure that was recently built for the new convention center and across Broadway from the Omni Hotel. We have requested the parking and the drop-off primarily for use of residents and for use of the community. We would like the passenger drop-off to be for visitors to the building who are simply dropping someone off to go visit, so it's not intended to have anyone waiting. Any deliveries will go down Broadway to a backyard that is a courtyard for deliveries and for use for trash removal. And then we've added these few parking spaces that could be adjacent to Omni and our property. The one immediately to the north, as you see on the attachment, is requested to be 15-minute because there's potential for a restaurant on that corner, and that would be for them to do curbside pickup. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And I also have a civil engineer here. If we get very technical, I'll call on him.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. Anybody else wanted to speak on this item? Okay, staff, can we have your input, please?
Certainly. Okay. You heard Ms. Nicholson give a summary on what the anticipated curb uses are going to be for this upcoming development. The passenger loading zone that you see on West Oklahoma City Boulevard, they've asked to be made available on a full-time basis. The angle parking zone that'll be on the east side of South Broadway Avenue is requested to be set for 2-hour time limited. It'll have a reserved space for the disabled at the south end and that 15-minute space on the spot at the very north end of it. With respect to the depths of the spaces, they seem to be in accordance with the with proposed changes that we'll be submitting in the near future for angle parking standards. And beyond that, if you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So if recommended for approval, staff would ask that they would be in accordance with the staff recommendations listed above the action required. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on the application.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5F?
Move approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve with staff recommendation, sir.
Yes, sorry, with staff recommendations.
Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner George to include staff recommendations. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Hale. Oh, there you go. Oh, there you go. So we have a motion to approve from George, seconded by Hale, subject to staff recommendations. Any discussion on this item? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5F from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Hale. Can I have your votes, please? Kula is a yes.
Littlefield is a yes.
Hey, popped up. At the end of a 2-hour meeting, I can finally vote. All right, all 7 have voted in favor and the item has passed. All right, then we go on now to item 6. There it is. Comments from citizens. Anybody out there wanted to talk to us? Anybody want to talk? Okay, we go on now to item 7. Items from traffic commissioners, et cetera. We'll go through the list here. Commissioner Barnell.
I'm glad we're having our meeting. I love the spirited debates today, and I look forward to us all getting back together in person, hopefully soon. Thank you.
Very much. Commissioner Littlefield.
You'll all be glad to know I have said enough. Thank you.
And we go to Commissioner Hale.
No, nothing to add. Thank you.
Commissioner Schuline.
Nothing to add. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner George.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Commissioner Cornett.
I am good. Thank you.
Okay. Anything from Oklahoma City Police? No. How about from the lawyer's office? Anything else for us?
No, thank you.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Staff, what do you have?
All right. Well, you've got before you our monthly report on yield and parking restrictions that we've been able to install administratively. And at the end of last month's meeting, Commissioner Littlefield had asked for a presentation from planning staff on Bike Walk OKC, because he and Commissioner Schuline are participants in the advisory group working with that staff as far as updating that particular plan. What we have the Planning Department Director, Jeffrey Butler, and Transportation Program Planner, Lakeisha Dunbar, are here today, and they are going to take over the meeting at this point in time.
Hold on one second. Yeah, hold on one second.
Certainly.
If I remember correctly, we want to go ahead and finish out most of this meeting, except for that briefing, and then I'll adjourn afterwards.
That's correct. I was just getting to that. So
all right.
If you've got any further questions for me, this will conclude my portion of today's meeting, and Mr. Butler and Ms. Dunbar will handle the rest of the meeting relative to their presentation on Bike Walk OKC.
Okay, well,
So-
I do. Was it your recommendation, May or June, for us to skip because of staffing, et cetera?
We are going to be exceptionally shorthanded for the June meeting.
Okay,
So
that's what I thought.
We're working on a bunch of items for the May meeting, as usual.
Okay.
But June will be particularly hard pressed.
Okay, so for all the traffic commissioners, May will be our regular scheduled meeting, and then maybe June we may cancel, but we'll talk about that at the May meeting. Okay, and one other thing, Mr. Chai, did I see something at your birthday today?
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know where you'd see that.
It was on Facebook, so it must be true.
Yeah, you've seen
Happy
Abraham
birthday,
Lincoln's quote on Facebook.
As the chairman, rest assured, I will not sing for you. But happy birthday from all of us.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. So the meeting will adjourn after planning's presentation, and we will see you again next month.
All right. Thank you for your help, sir.
Yes, and be sure to call for the adjournment following their presentation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is it my turn now?
Yes, sir. And I think you can share the screen. Do you have share the screen?
Yeah, Lakeisha is going to share a presentation, and I'll start us off, and then we will get going and to kind of take you through this. But first, I'd like to wish Stuart a happy 30th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Wedding day for him, big number. We appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all today. This is one of my favorite topics, and Lakeisha's too, I know. And so we're happy to be here and appreciate the invitation. And glad we're able to be here to kind of discuss a real life scenario today. And we're always available and happy to help. So please feel free to call on us at any time. And we would also like to invite you all to participate in the Bike Walk OKC update process. As was mentioned, we have a couple of you on our advisory group, and there are lots of opportunities to participate. So if you are interested at all, please contact Lakeisha, and she can get you involved in whatever way, how much or however little you would like to be. So the good news as far as involvement is I wouldn't say we're just getting started, but we're closer to we're not quite through the middle of our update process yet. And so that's kind of what's going on. So Lakeisha, maybe go to the next slide, and I will kind of cover the intro. Here's what we're talking about today, why we did the plan, what's in it, and a little bit about the plan update, and then also what it has to do with this group, and how it applies to you, what the overlaps are. With that, I will go ahead and turn over Lakeisha, and I'll still be here hanging out as well, and we can tag team a little bit, chime in, and if you all have questions at any time, feel free to pipe in and ask, and we'll be happy to answer those for you to the best we can. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Lakeisha. And let me introduce Lakeisha real quick. Lakeisha came to us, like she said, about 3 years ago, and she has a lot of experience. We're very fortunate to have her. She has a tremendous amount of experience in transportation, planning, and traffic engineering back east in North Carolina. And so she's a fantastic planner here for us, and we appreciate all that she does. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Lakeisha.
Thank you, Jeff. And I too want to congratulate Stuart on his birthday today. Happy birthday. And thank you for inviting us to discuss the Bike Walk plan, the update, and how the Transportation and Traffic Commission can interact with the plan. Please allow me a few minutes to kind of get through those first 3 bullet points. I'm probably going to talk really fast because I want to really get to the meat of that 4th bullet point. And we've already started discussions associated with appropriately with that 4th bullet point on the Transportation and Traffic Commission and how you can interact with the plan. When we get to that 4th bullet point, it'll be, hopefully open dialogue. I'll go off script, but on those first bullet points, I'll pretty much be on script and kind of talk really fast. But when we get to that 4th bullet point, I'll have a few examples of current and future projects with scenarios on how you all may have influence on the success and progression of the proposed designs. And kind of like we just did with 2 projects, it was a great example of how you all can interact with the plan. So with that, I'll get started. So let's get right into it. Why Bike Walk OKC plan? Why the plan? So first, I would like to start with a point that I hope is hard to refute, but everyone is a pedestrian. And every trip we take, we all walk, or even those who use aids to maneuver short distances, we are all considered pedestrians. And with that aside, there is an observation that more people desire to walk and cycle locally and nationally. The Bike Walk OKC plan helps the city staff and administration identify ways and locations to make walking and cycling safer in Oklahoma City by connecting neighborhoods to jobs, public transit, commercial districts, schools, and parks. It also identifies ways to reduce barriers that make it challenging to safely walk and bicycle in and around the city. And there's some added benefits to better cycling and walking around the better cycling and walking networks. One, it increases transportation options to balance the needs for all modes. I think we kind of heard that sentiment a little bit earlier. It also identified safer networks for all ages. Ages, you know, we kind of have this mantra of ages 8 to 80. You may have heard that. And so with cycling and of course with walking, we want to make it safe and all of our networks safe for ages 8 to 80. And we heard even earlier for ages 1 and 2-year-olds, we want to make it safer for even toddlers to be able to walk and maneuver throughout their communities. Also, the bike plan identifies ways that it helps to make healthier communities through increased physical activity and in this climate by reduction in traffic and emissions. And all of these goals you see listed here, these are goals that align with the Plan OKC and also align with City Council priorities. So what's in the plan? Next, I would like to quickly describe what is contained in the plan document. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about tiers. I didn't plan to describe the tiers to you today, but it sounds like that is something that we do need to educate you all on. I do want to mention that this is not the only opportunity for conversation about how your commission and how you all can interact with the plan. And we would be glad to maybe schedule a workshop and come back and kind of give you a little more details about really what's in the plan, particularly like those tiers that we talked about and what that means and how those are defined. But for today, I just want to remind you that the plan is comprised of chapters that focuses on bike, trail, and sidewalk networks. The plan also contains in-depth technical analysis of demographic and geographic information that was used to identify the locations that make up the bicycle, sidewalk, and trail networks. And the plan also contains a variety of prioritization processes that by category, such as schools, parks, transit, and these are used for project selections. So I'll show you later where we come up with lists of projects that could be funded. And then lastly, what's in the plan, in addition to the networks, the technical analysis and the prioritized list of projects for capital improvements, there are performance measures and a variety of categories of action that are necessary to accomplishing the goals of this plan. This is an excerpt from pages 148 and 149 that are included in the plan, and they're included in the proposed code regulations section. There's a code regulations updates, there's a policy updates, there's a standard updates, a system updates, and research effort and category list to support the plan networks. I pulled this one out specifically because these are examples under our policy updates. There's one that says, when approving projects that improve the level of service for vehicular traffic, ensure that they do not negatively impact the walkability and bikeability of the area. And that's under the policy updates. And I may have covered that up, but and then the example that I put in bold up front for you all here is under the system updates. And these two are the only two for this section. And they both, I think, are ones that the Traffic Commission may, I wanted to point these out because they specifically are ones that the commission may have some direct impact on helping staff to achieve. And they both say, if you can't see, The first one says improve traffic signals along bicycle facilities to ensure cyclists are detected automatically. And the second one says incorporate automatic pedestrian signal phasing, split phasing, scramble phasing, leading pedestrian intervals, LPIs, and other methods in business districts, commercials, corridors, and pedestrian priority areas and other locations. So these were written, these were reviewed and approved by city council and city staff. And so these are goals. I kind of consider these as goals that we would work towards helping make our plan a success.
Hey, Lakeisha, your slides are truncated on my screen. I'm not sure if that's the case with everybody else.
Yes.
So it only shows me, like, I don't know, to the left 2/3 of your screen. Is there a way you can maybe share it differently? I don't know if you're sharing just your desktop or just the window. Just thinking later on when you show maps, it's going to be cutting off.
Okay. So I was sharing, I thought, the PowerPoint presentation itself. Are you still seeing the same thing?
There we go. That looks better.
It is better?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, now let's see if it works with my maneuvering here. Okay, so I'm not seeing what you're seeing. 1 second. Are you seeing action plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
All right. So now are you seeing why the plan update? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I just talked about what's in the plan. And now I want to talk about why the plan update. And why after only just 3 years? Why we of the plan being adopted? So the plan was adopted in 2018, and here we are in 2021, and we're updating the plan. In my previous practices, you know, to update a plan like this size and scale in 3 years is kind of a little unheard of, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing for the city of Oklahoma City. The city has been strategic in identifying and allocating funding for bicycle trails and sidewalk projects, which started well before the adoption of the plan through the bond and sales tax election voted on by Oklahoma City residents and also by applying for federal funds. So that's a great thing. Over $300 million worth of funding has been allocated in the last 8 or 9 years for these facilities, to also include not only just bike, sidewalks, trails, but also street enhancement projects. The $300 million includes $83 million from the MAPS 4 initiative that was approved in 2019. And then the breakdown, there's $20 million for bike projects, $55 million for sidewalk amenities, and $8 million for trails. And that's just in the MAPS 4 initiative alone. And so the plan identifies over 230 miles of planned on-street bike facilities. And since the adoption, we have funded over 79 miles of the 203 miles of bike facilities. So we're moving along, we're trudging along, we're getting work done. The plan also identifies over 198 miles of planned trail. And since then, we've funded about 15 miles of trail. And we've also funded a total of over 130 miles of sidewalk. But we have more sidewalk than that needs to get funded, a lot more in the plan. And this is a quick view of the breakdown of how the $300 million is allocated by project type. And again, it includes, I included street enhancement projects in this list because these projects typically include significant sidewalk and pedestrian improvements. The planning department staff is currently managing and monitoring close to 125 of these projects. So we're very busy, so that's a great thing. So with all of this funding, our prioritized list of projects is being checked off faster than we had planned and prepared for. And with our boots on the ground, there are some experiences that need to be accounted for in the plan that relates to project selections and implementations. So this is why we're doing the plan update now. How is the and so we have also identified for the plan update that we may want to create a methodology for identifying key corridors for bike and pedestrian infrastructure and locations where safe crossings are needed. So we are considering adding a safe crossings and/or a safe corridors component to the plan. So this is something that we're looking forward to doing as part of the update. And I really want to note, and we talked about this earlier, I think it was mentioned that, bicycle facilities and sidewalk amenities can be used as traffic calming tools. And so in preparation for today's presentation, we discussed internally that we may even consider adding a traffic calming section to the plan, or see how our plan can coordinate with the Traffic Commission's traffic calming plan. And this might be done in conjunction with the new safe crossings and the safe corridors component. So how is the plan used? How do we use the plan? I think today was a prime example of how we use the plan. But in the plan, we do have a plan implementation, and this image is a page in the plan that displays the overall process. And after we prioritize the projects, I mentioned that earlier, we work to get funding, and then we coordinate on the design and implementation. So if you hear, we coordinate with Public Works and work hand in hand on the implementation of the projects through design, hiring consultants to do the design, and then the implementation, making sure that the designs accommodate what we call for, what Bike Walk calls for. This is real quick an example of the list of prioritized bike projects found on page 112 in chapter 4. And this is just a sample. We have got multiple pages like this in the plan. The implementation chapter of the plan has lists for bike, sidewalk, and trail projects. And staff references these pages constantly as our checklist for projects to be funded and constructed. And then this is a sample of similar to the bike funded projects. This is an example of the sidewalk prioritized list of projects, specifically for the pedestrian priority areas. And that's a term that we use. Those are areas that have been defined in our plan, key areas as prioritized for sidewalks. And maybe later on in a workshop, we can explain, give you a little bit more background on these priority areas. So before we get started with this next section, are there any questions on the plan and its update? And before we get into questions, I will say this is where we're going to really get into meat of things and kind of pick up where we left off in the meeting with some of your agenda items. But are there any questions about what I've just shown you?
I do. Shay does. What would like my neighborhood have to do to request a sidewalk, which is along MacArthur Boulevard between Britton Road and Hefner?
So we take requests. Sorry, was that the end of your question?
Yep, that was the end of it. Thank you.
Okay. So we take requests daily. We get requests by email, phone calls. And so we get requests on a daily basis. And then we typically, kind of the process that we go through really quickly is we look to see first, is it already identified in the plan? Is it planned? And then if it's not planned, we do have a database, and we add it to our database list of requests. And then like now with the plan update, we are actually taking those requests and we're mapping them, and then we're going to go through that prioritization, that technical analysis and some of that prioritization processes. that our previous reviews went through. And we're going to take them through that review process and see if they get prioritized up, and then we'll make those as recommendations going forward to receive funding, depending on how it gets prioritized. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? Okay, so how can the Transportation and Traffic Commission interact with the plan? So I'm going to kind of go off the script here and don't really have a whole lot written. This slide I actually had just before this section, but after all of the conversation we just had, I thought I'd pull it down here. And because I had this under the section about how we use the plan. And I wanted to refer to, these are some, probably not all, but most of the agencies and departments that we coordinate with, that we reach out to, and that we hope and expect are referring to the plan through their variety of decision-making processes. And so again, like today, it was a prime example of how you all can use the plan. I believe in how Stuart has shown how he's currently using the plan to, he refers to the plan. So when there are requests being made, it looks like he's referring to the plan and making sure that the bike walk doesn't call for specific facilities along wherever the request is being made. And then obviously he's using that as a point in his traffic, in his report to inform you all of what the plan calls for a variety of locations and requests. The plan also can be used. This image I have here is not in the plan, but this is a set of design standards that our department, the planning department and the public works department collaborated on and developed and have posted for developers to use, not just developers, for consultants, contractors to use when they are designing facilities that call for a bike facility along their planned project. So this is available, but in conjunction with Bike Walk OKC for them to refer to for guidelines and design standards. I wanted to note here that we do identify, we've recognized these as some of the things, some of the tasks and roles and goals of the commission, of the things that you review and approve. And all of these things have one impact or another or on some of the projects that we propose, particularly like mid-block crossings for some of our street enhancement projects. The ADA parking spaces we're going to talk about in just a moment as it relates to one of two of our projects. So now I'm totally off script, and the first two images I have and you may have received in your packets are of projects that you all have already reviewed at some point. And so I've included a total of 6 locations. We may not have time for all 6 locations, and that's respectfully noted. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So we don't have to go through all 6 images that I've included, or all 6 locations. There's more than 6 images, but there's 6 distinct locations that I've included in the presentation for us to kind of talk through. This first one is 39th Street Enhancement Project. And I believe you all not too long ago, maybe in the last couple of months, reviewed, actually it was January. It was in January. This was an agenda item for your commission to review. And so I'm just bringing it up, and I'm just gonna kind of open it up for discussion at this point. I don't have any talking points related to these images. And just let's kind of talk from here.
I just want to say thank you so much for making this happen. I think that we've learned today that there's going to be items coming before the Traffic Commission that are going to have a reciprocity one way or the other with the bike walk plan. I think that was evident today. I've got a couple of questions, like a specific incidents. For example, what if a designated bike lane were considered to go through a neighborhood street, or a portion of a neighborhood street? Is there a consideration to remove on-street parking to accomplish things like that? Would there be incidences where something similar could happen, perhaps in an existing older business improvement district, where we're exchanging parking spaces for bike lanes? It would seem to me that if we do, that would have to be something, an item to come before the commission to remove those spaces. Although I'm also confused about an item that the commission did approve in the past couple of months, where Director Wenger was administering that meeting, and that was his application. I wasn't sure on the language after the fact whether or not that gave this program carte blanche to remove those parking spaces in neighborhoods or not. I'm just not real clear on that.
So a great question. And we do, so you mentioned two scenarios that I heard you say. One is kind of a residential area, and another one is a commercial district. And so I did include two projects in here to kind of talk through that, where we have not come forward yet, but will likely come forward soon on making requests as it relates to how the bike project will impact existing parking conditions. And so the first one I included is this one here, Main Street bike lanes from Kentucky to Indiana. So the project, and let me go back and give you a little context here. The overall project is the General Pershing Main Street bike project. So the whole project extends from May Avenue all the way over to, it culminate at existing bike lanes. I think that already start at Lee Avenue and go over to, or bike facility. And when I say bike facility, I kind of encompass it all, meaning it could be Sharrows, it could be tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 type bike projects. So that when I say bike facility, it could be one of those three options. So in this case, the project, it will connect to existing bike facilities. I believe they are on Sharrow facilities that go from Lee Street over to Walker. The current project, phase 1 is pretty much complete. It has, it's a tier 3 facility on General Pershing from Main Street to Penn. And right now we're working on phase 3, which is from Penn to, will go from Penn to Western. Phase 2 has also been constructed, which is between Western and over to Lee. So that was recently constructed. So today I really wanted this conversation, the question that you asked Mr. Littlefield regarding Main Street, the Main Street portion is a project that is proposing to do a road diet. It's currently four travel lanes. And the plan proposes to, we're gonna have two basically designs because the road is wider from one section from Indiana going west back to Pennsylvania. It's wider, so there we're planning to get a 3-lane cross section. We're planning to hope to accommodate on-street parking and then include a tier 1 bicycle facility on both sides of the road. So this is kind of the commercial district area that you're referring to, Mr. Littlefield. And right now, in block by block, it's a different scenarios as to the current parking conditions, but essentially parking is permissible for this whole corridor. And so this is one where we're planning to bring forward to you a request for some changes in the parking. I don't want to get into the details of what those requests are right now, and I don't think we have time for that. But so what I understand and what we are being gearing up to do is to bring this to you all as a request, and it'll probably be multiple petitions. Multiple requests by block. We are petitioning the corridor as it relates to the needs for each block. I'll stop there with this example. And so and then the next example, and we can revisit this in conversation, but I want to give this as the residential example. This is Lottie Avenue. We have plans to do, we have a funded bike project. This is a sales tax project to do bike lanes from essentially from Northeast 23rd Street all the way down to 4th Street. The northern portion closer to 23rd Street is mostly residential. There are houses and driveways that front this location here. There are some pockets of commercial and then maybe institutional as you get further south towards 4th Street. And so this again is another location where parking is permissible on the road. And our plans may impact where parking is now permitted. Another example for the same corridor on the on the north is pointed to the left of your screen. So on the west side of Lottie, on the southern portion, on the bottom portion of this image, there is a district where there's angled parking currently. And so our plans may impact this angled parking location. And there's one or two other pockets. So again, this is something that through our design and communication, we are working on a public engagement kind of process. The Main Street project is kind of set the precedence on what that looks like. And I'll explain what we've done. If you'd like to hear, I can tell you what we've done as far as our public engagement process. And so again, this is just another example, I think, along the lines of kind of your residential area. So I'll stop there and let you chime in.
So for the benefit of my colleagues on the commission, you mentioned the word when you were speaking about similar applications in a business district. You mentioned the word petitions. And so are we to understand that in order to present an application to do something like this, either in a neighborhood or in a business district, that there is a formal petition process where the property owners would have the ability to sign off yay or nay, and that petition would be something that would be available to the commissioners in making their decisions, similar to like we do with stop signs and et cetera?
Yes. So we are following the same practices that others are following when they petition for changes in traffic controls and parking. Particularly in this case, it's more just as much for parking controls as it is for traffic controls. So yes, we are petitioning the corridors.
Well, if I could just throw in here, Project 180 was a project that the city did, and things that changed came to us afterwards. They went over, they got their authorizations and they moved on. And then after the roads were built and the one ways and the two ways became one ways, or the one ways became two and all that, then they came to us and we made it look good on paper. So this is not going down that kind of road, meaning you aren't going to say it's in the plan, here it comes, we're going to put a bike in here, get rid of these parking, and it's something you expect us to just say yes to.
Correct. Yes, correct. In agreement with what you're saying. We are working to bring forth the projects through the policy that's been established, I believe, in your policy, that we are to petition as if any other agency or individual would need to petition for any changes in traffic controls. So
Main Street is something, you know, that you just mentioned already. You know, we're in the process and things are going well there. We're having a lot of conversations with property owners and business owners about the project and getting their feedback and getting their approval through the petition. And you know, it's complicated because, you know, retrofitting these streets is a big design challenge, and each site has their own unique needs, you know, with their parking and their driveways and et cetera. But so far so good that we've had a pretty good, you know, there are some folks that have more difficult sites than others, but so far so good. But yeah, we intend to do that on Lottie as well, to do public outreach. We sent postcards, as Public Works often does, to every site, every business, so that we could, you know, gauge their interest. If they're interested, they have the opportunity to set up a meeting, give us a call. And we reached out to many that we know would be impacted. For example, you know, if the design calls for a reduction in their parking spaces in front of their building, you know, we're reaching out to them in particular to see what we can do to mitigate. And that's going to be our standard practice.
All right, very good. Thank you.
I had a quick question before we move on. Sorry. A couple of months ago in our commission meeting, we basically approved to move forward car protected bike lanes, and didn't know, like, how is that going to impact? I mean, if things are starting to come to us, but car protected bike lanes are eventually going to be possible, but we're approved, you know, like, is it just a paint can be changed and we'll figure it out as it happens? Or is there any kind of preparation for the lanes that are potential car protected bike lanes?
So you're saying an actual project came before you for parking protected, or the ordinance?
The ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah, so that we could pass it along to city council, so that then we could start the process that if car protected bike lanes were suggested by you all, or if that was something that needed to happen, that was actually legal for cars to park that far away from the sidewalk.
Right.
Yeah, that's something that we've been, we're very excited about. The planning instigated that many months ago, and we're excited that it's now it is official. So we can do that. And in working with Eric Winger, they would like to do a pilot project. So instead of kind of opening the floodgates, they would like to do a pilot project, so we can kind of, since we haven't done that here before, because there are some, it definitely has its benefits, the parking protected bike lanes. You know, if you're a cyclist, you feel safer because you've got, you know, tons of steel between you and moving traffic. And there are other benefits as well. But one thing that, you know, when it comes to driveways and the ability to see the sight distance triangle, so there are some differences in design between the two different ways, you know, whether you have parking next to the travel lane or next to the curb. And so for that reason, Public Works would like to do kind of a pilot project approach and then roll it out as we go. There are still a lot of projects, a lot of bike projects that need to be designed and built. So we'll have a lot of opportunities to implement that.
Great. Thank you.
When these items come before the Traffic Commission, and because it's really quite a new assignment is a good word, I think, you know, for us to get educated on it, do the right things for the citizens. It would seem to me that it would make sense on the few first, at least, to make, is it possible to not maybe get those in a consent docket, but have them where they can be items for individual consideration where we can really scrutinize them? For example, like, you know, I don't want to pick a specific area, but you've got a mile-long range and you have, like, you know, 4 different zones in there that have, you know, as Jeff pointed out, you have different site triangles and different driveways and things. So you come up with 3 or 4 different items that could make this mile-long entity happen, but it could go into a consent docket. I would prefer to see them have the ability to be have more eyes on it than in a consent docket. Is that something that's considered or planned? Or
I mean, we could certainly, we talked to Stuart about that. It's not, we hadn't considered it up to this point, but yeah, you make a good point. I mean, Lakeisha, with her traffic engineering background, is not surprised at all, I don't think, by the level of scrutiny and detail we've had to utilize as we've gone through these. But, you know, I guess myself, you know, looking at it, you're right. There's just, there's a lot, every block, even this particular project that we're looking at, every block is different. There's so many little details that make a difference regarding safety and traffic flow and the parking, the number of parking stalls. So yeah, that's a great point. And we certainly want scrutiny because as you know, we want it to be a safe and effective environment. We just don't have very many bike lanes. We're relatively new at this in Oklahoma City. We've got a few downtown, but nothing that I would consider a network. And so we've made a lot of progress with the design standards that Lakeisha showed you earlier. A lot of thought and consideration went into those. And we welcome additional thought and consideration as we move forward with projects and with Bike Walk OKC for that matter. We welcome your input, and we'd be happy to come back to this group and have you review and consider that as well.
A final question from me. I think the Bike Walk OKC Bike Walk plan is a gift to the traffic calming efforts and discussions, and even the ASAP program that we have. Is there any opportunity for you folks in the planning commission as you move forward planning these specific areas where you could include in that zone or range or specific spot? Is there funding for trees or shrubs? Is there funding for, you know, lighting? Is there an opportunity where perhaps to make something work really well on a street that has a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit that you guys could incorporate into that area, an application before the commission to consider reducing the speed limit or adding a street light, signalized controls, things like that?
Yeah, we've done a lot of street enhancements over the years, and we have a lot to go. And some of them are 39th Street style, for example, where it's, I mean, a complete rebuild almost. Others are much simpler, like the the 10th Street, the West 10th Street. It was just a simple crossing that Keisha mentioned earlier. But in maps 4, for example, you know, there was money put in there to add amenities. So, you know, we could do sidewalks and trees to, you know, make it a nicer and safer environment, because we know that it's trees, even just trees, anything that reduces the
appearance
that makes the traffic seem like it's a little bit of a narrower corridor that they're driving through, has a traffic calming effect. And so yeah, we definitely want to consider all those things. And to the extent that we have funding, we're always going to recommend adding amenities and so forth. And, you know, when I look at the maps 4 funding, it comes down to, well, you know, we've only got so much. So is it better to use it all to add sidewalks, or, you know, how much of it is used to add amenities? Because, you know, you have to, it's a hard decision. You add trees here, that means less sidewalks somewhere else. So, but absolutely, we want to continue to do that as much as we can and build what Plan OKC says are livable streets to the extent possible. And it's going to take a long time. I mean, our staff calculated it. We have a need for sidewalks that's north of $1 billion. We could spend, we could do an entire MAPS project on sidewalks and not get close to done. Mm-hmm. So it's a big need. We're going to be working on it for decades.
So are there any other questions? You may have seen the images in your packet. I know it's been a long meeting here. Are there any of the images in your packets that you'd like to refer to or have a question about, and maybe why it included it, or what our plans might be, and how it may impact the Transportation and Traffic Commission?
Well, we are very grateful again for the opportunity to speak with you all. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Please get involved in our update if you desire. Bike Walk OKC. And like I said, we're happy to come back and present to you at any time and get your feedback on the revised plan.
And I'd like to.
Yes, ma'am.
May I specifically thank Mr. Littlefield and Mr. Schuline for their participation in the plan update review process. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I appreciate this opportunity to share what you all are doing with the Traffic Commission. And I think it's going to be a real smart move that we get educated on it. We're able to work together and build the best possible city. I think this is just great. Thank you for your time. I know it was a lot of work, Lakeisha. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So for the traffic commissioners, what I'd like everybody to think about, and we'll talk about it again at the May meeting, is do we want to have a sub committee to be responsible to interact with them? Do we use our traffic common because it's a similar kind of thing, but it's not? Do we create a planning commission representative or something that makes sure that we formally get in with the planning commission and all these sub kind of things? So why don't you think about it over the month, and if we need to formalize how we're organized, I'd be willing to talk about that next month.
Great suggestions.
Mr. Chair, sorry, I failed to mention, since that reminded me, the Planning Commission has an interest in coordinating with the Traffic Commission as well. And I think some of you might have talked to some of the planning commissioners. So we will be in touch. They've talked about doing another joint session like we did several years ago. But I mean, obviously there's overlap here, and that's important. So we're happy to continue that conversation as well.
All right, very good, sir. Thank you. Okay, now we go to the final item. Again, we're still on final comments and that kind of thing. Does anybody else have anything for the Traffic Commission? Okay, I don't hear anything, so we stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
All right,
Bye.
kill it. I'll take this off. Let's stick to it.